With doing so, this is a public meeting that the board will allow public comment, but please wait till you're called on to ask a question. And with that, Alan, I will hand it over to you. For your agenda tonight, the first thing I have is septic extension request for 99 and 103 Northbridge Street. The septic plans are getting ready or have already expired. We've received a letter from Shea Engineering asking for a 1-year extension and the $100 fee for each lots. So I just need to know, you and Tom to decide that you're okay with that and to vote that you grant the 1-year extension from tonight.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much standard operating procedure. They got everything in before the prior permit expired.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm okay with it, Tom.
Hey, Alan, I take it this is the first request for an extension, Missy, on this?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with it. So I would be glad to make a motion.
Okay.
I motion that we accept the request for the 1-year extension for the plans specified for the properties in discussion.
Alan?
Second.
Alrighty, thank you. The next thing that I have on the agenda is any updates for 106 Millville Street. As you guys remember, you guys were up there, I believe it was
A couple
last
Tuesdays
week.
ago.
Yeah, I believe it was around the last week of August, first couple of days of September. I think it was August 31st. You guys were up there. For people who are joining, Tom or Alan, I don't know if you want to give them a little bit of history as far as why you guys were called out there from the state.
I'll allow Tom to do that if he would. He was there for the whole thing, if he wants.
Yeah, I was there for a good portion with Andy. I know at the time, essentially, my awareness was that we had been called out to the address location because of complaints that were received. Actually, I believe initially through the state, and they had actually previously gone out, I think ahead of our visit, to investigate some of those complaints. We actually went out locally in follow-up with myself and Andy and Danielle, our health agent, along with Max Carbone, our animal inspector, and also part of the group was also Kevin Sullivan. That's his last name, right? Is he?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Kevin Sullivan, who is the animal control officer that we share with the town of Uxbridge. Am I correct on that, Missy, as well?
I believe it's the town of Uxbridge and the town of Douglas also, possibly Millville.
Oh, okay. So that's so Kevin was there as well, and one of the major concerns that we were looking to address there was the conditions under which several animals were being housed and cared for that are on the premises. There was a variety of different animals, a couple of cows, some geese, duck, goats that were out in an open area below where the upper barn resides. And then within the upper barn itself, they were housing horses, some ponies, a couple of dogs. There were also a couple of goats in one of those stalls as well. We also, as part of the group, we also had accompaniment by a couple of Mendon police officers as well, assisting in the process. And essentially, we kind of walked through the property, and unfortunately, we were rather dismayed at the conditions that we saw with regard to the care for the animals, the condition of some, one in particular, one of the cows. So there was some activities or some actions taken I believe in that regard, I believe if I'm correct, I believe that one cow that was of concern that Danielle and Kevin had concerns for was actually removed and taken to, was it Tufts Veterinary, Missy?
Yes, I believe there was a some kind of a bovine uh, organization, and I believe members from the MSPCA were brought down. And my understanding was with the cow, they wanted to try and save it. It was brought to Tufts. Tufts took control of the animal and immediately started to administer antibiotics and things like that, from my understanding.
Out of curiosity, do we know the current status of that animal?
I do not. I would have to ask Andy. I think Andy got an update on the animal, but I think
Okay.
I want to say I don't think it was put down. I think it was okay.
Oh, excellent. Well, that's good to hear. As the group kind of walked through the property, looking at the various conditions with the animals, there was also some other elements that were noticed. It appeared as though the property was being used for some events that appeared to, in investigation, were not properly licensed. It appeared as though there may have been some events that involved some sales of food to the public. I believe one of the major concerns that the state group had was the report of what was, I believe, the slaughtering of animals on the premises, which, from what I last understand, was the investigation that they had performed at that particular time. There was some indication, but there appeared not to be enough to substantiate or to validate that activity was actually happening. I know the state's continuing their investigations, so unfortunately at this point I'm not updated on any recent actions that they may have taken since then. The other part of what Andy and I saw, in addition to poor conditions with the animals, such as the stalls, a lack of food, hay for the animals, and in addition to, there was an area outside the top barn that raised some concern with regard to some trash that appeared to have been there for, hard to say how long, but bags of trash that were emanating a bit of an odor, and that was a concern to us from a health perspective. I was not able to stay for the whole visit, so that's essentially what I was involved in and saw. So I know that there is continued activities going on, to investigate the situations up there and to implement compliance actions where needed. I don't know, Missy, if we've had any further communication from the state on any potential activity or action they're looking to continue on.
I have not received any additional information other than the initial email and phone call that I got from Mike Cahill from the state, saying that they were called out, and I believe the USDA was also involved, and that they wanted you guys to investigate a possible illegal restaurant and a possible illegal slaughterhouse, which, like you said, you found no evidence that you could substantiate of a slaughterhouse, but you did find stuff for an illegal restaurant. My other question, and I don't remember, was there also a housing issue?
Well, there was a concern that was raised because of the number of individuals that were seen there at the premises at the time of our walkthrough, and whether or not the structure was supportive enough for the presence of the quantity of individuals that were there.
Mhm.
I did not actually go into the housing aspect at that particular time. That kind of became a follow-up item, so I'm not sure if Danielle is looking into some further actions on that end or not.
I did
Margaret?
ask Danielle to attend tonight's meeting, but she had a previous engagement between 6 and 8, so I don't know if we're still on. I don't know if she'll pop in or not. I do have to say that the person who was leasing the property did come into the office and wanted to apply for a food permit. So I asked them some questions on what exactly they were looking to do. They were looking to do to make cheese. They were looking to have, I asked them, are you going to make things like chili or things of that nature? And they said yes, on top of selling the produce, the corn, and other items. So I said, okay, here's the paperwork. If you're going to be cooking anything, you have to have certain certificates and everything. There was a woman that accompanied him because he can't speak English very well. The woman did return back with a food application. They don't want to do the cooking part. They just want to be able to sell the produce. So I am in the middle of working with Danielle to find out what they can and can't do. They also wanted to be able to sell livestock. And I told them that we don't issue permits for selling of livestock. And I was not aware of anyone in Mendon that did have a permit to sell livestock. So I told him, I said, you really need to contact the state. So I did give them the address and, I Googled it and everything. And I gave them the number and the email address and the website for the Mass Department of Agriculture and told them that they needed to check with them. And again, when she came back, they would just wanted to sell the produce. So I'm working with Danielle on that.
Okay, and I believe the only other item that I would mention to those on the call is that the facility has been and should still be in a shutdown state. So I know that I've been by there on recent occasion. There is caution tape up on the entrances. So there should currently be no activity, no operations currently taking place of any kind until the compliance has been validated for the things they are looking to do there. And that's kind of my summary, Alan. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate it. I was only there for about 15 minutes of the entirety of what was going on there. And being a previous boarder there of horses a number of years ago, I know I was very shocked to see what was going on. I know Missy looked up the owner of record, and it's a gentleman from Watertown that actually owns the property. The housing issue, I did hear that there were 2 bedrooms set up in what used to be the hayloft, adjacent what was sort of a temporary apartment. And there were mattresses found on the floor. So all of this is, in motion, and we're trying, without putting anybody on the street, we're trying to get everybody in compliance. That's
Alan?
about it for us. Yes.
Sorry about that. But Kathleen and Mark Alexander have their hand up. I'm assuming they have a question for you.
Yeah, no, I was going to turn it over to the audience, and thank you very much for recognizing them. Please go ahead. This is the Alexanders, if I understand correctly.
Yes, it's the Alexanders at 14 Level Street. I appreciate everything the board has done as far as the illegal restaurant is concerned, but I do feel that this issue is larger than just the illegal restaurant. As you know, a lot of loom has been dumped in that back area, and I encourage and invite anyone from the board to come to our property, go to the back of our property, and view the conditions of the property. A pit was dug, a outflow pipe was interrupted from the outflow pond from our property through that property and into Long Pond. We get the drainage from Millville and Level Street because there's a lot of wetlands around that area. And my well is also right at the end of that property. And we have grave concerns about the condition of the erosion from the back area and the stagnant pit that's been dug. And I would even go so far as request a triple E mosquito test if that's possible. And this might be larger than this meeting tonight, but I feel that there are ongoing concerns.
Mrs. Alexander, this is Alan Greenberg, the Vice Chairman speaking. I believe I'm aware of the fill that has been brought onto the property. I've seen it and I've questioned it myself. And I believe Conservation was contacted and a
By
member
me.
of Conservation. Okay. All right. And Conservation went out and said everything was okay. Do I understand that correctly, ma'am?
Initially they did. I did ask, I had called them on August 2nd and 3rd, and they replied, and then I emailed on the 5th and the 9th. He called me back on August 12th. I did request at that time whether I should be, whether a construction sock, I'm not sure what it's called, should be placed against the fence. And at that time, he advised me no. However, since then, the mountain of dirt has gotten larger, and with the storms, there's been multiple erosions. And at some point, a silt fence has been erected around the property. But I'm very concerned about our well. I'm concerned about the animal waste. And there has been, which I have personally witnessed, black construction bags brought from the top of the hill down to the bottom level of that mountain of dirt and buried with a hoe. So I don't know what's in the construction bags, but I'm just concerned about all of these multiple issues.
The animal waste that was dumped at the,
I'm sorry, sir. I wasn't able to hear you.
there was also a large amount of waste of like from the barn, it looked like dumped over the edge.
At the top of the dirt pile.
Okay. Have you, and I'm not trying to pass the buck, but have you talked to Conservation again with your
No,
concerns?
I have been on vacation for 2 weeks. I just got back on Sunday.
Okay. The fill and the pipe and the silt fence, and what's being buried there really would come under their umbrella,
Okay,
to my knowledge. We do try to work together. Obviously, we're all members of the town.
sure.
So we do try to, work together, but I wouldn't want, where they're already involved, I don't want to make any judgments on things that they've made statements on.
No, neither do I.
Okay. So I would suggest at this point, you contact them again with any new information that they
Okay.
hadn't got August 2nd and 3rd about what you're seeing is going on there.
Sure.
Pictures, video, anything that you may have.
Okay. And while we were on vacation, Mark came back to work on the yard, and there were 3 police officers up at 106 Millville, and they did come down to the fence and ask him some questions, but he did not have the information because he works 50 hours a week, and I'm a retired
Okay.
nurse now, so I have time at home. So he was not aware of the burial of trash bags in that dirt. So I didn't know if I
Okay.
should contact the police, whoever was investigating, or if I should contact Conservation.
Well, you could try both. I mean,
Okay.
The police department may have record of which officers responded that day.
Okay, that would be
So
helpful.
you could track down the officer that responded or officers and answer their questions now.
Okay,
As far as your well is concerned, that definitely comes under, the Board of Health. So please tell me what your concerns are about your well, and we can advise you. Most likely, based on what you're telling me is going on there without further discussion, you are more than welcome to have your well tested. I don't know how often you have the water quality tested.
I just had it
but you're-
tested in the spring, and I intend to
good.
have, I did, and it was fine, and I do intend to have it tested again as soon as they can come out to do that, just to get another
Okay, and
baseline.
No, absolutely. That's fantastic. Now, is the lab that's doing the analysis, are they a state certified lab? Because that's very important.
I don't know, but I will look into that.
Okay, that's usually whenever someone discusses with us having their well tested because they're afraid of a possible issue. We always recommend that it's a state certified lab.
Okay,
That just gives you, more clout.
yes,
If there is an issue. I'm sorry to hear that, you're experiencing this with your neighbor. But, between the Board of Health and the Conservation Board, hopefully we'll be able to, at least answer your questions and, correct anything that is being done that's not correct.
okay,
However, like I said, my understanding is Conservation was contacted. I didn't know it was you that contacted them. And they responded and said that they weren't filling any wetlands or doing anything wrong at that particular time.
yes,
Now, I
that's
didn't hear
correct.
that. Okay. So, if you still have concerns, contact them again, please.
Okay,
And as far as your well, as soon as they test it again, if anything has changed, please let us know.
okay,
And keep those test results in a good place.
sure,
Because that's the only way that, we can help you if something goes wrong.
okay. And who would be the one to do a triple E test?
I don't have the answer for that question. I know that Triple E is usually monitored by the state,
Okay,
and they usually alert us if they've found anything, and they don't usually tell us what body of water they've tested.
okay,
And there is a little bit of, they have to be careful how they do that, because they wouldn't want anybody to, skew the results.
yes, of course.
So they don't usually tell us the body of water, but the state usually tests, and then they alert us if they'll say Triple E was, found in a catch basin in the town of Mendon,
Okay,
and then we can alert the public.
okay, thank you.
But the town of Mendon Board of Health itself does not do the testing.
Okay,
All right, just like our beach, the Parks Department, and the Board of Health hire a third party to test that.
okay, thank you.
No, you're very welcome. Please, feel free to reach out. And before you go, Missy, anything that I may have missed?
No, actually, I would just suggest that, yes, she have her well tested. If there could be a possibility, and I might be talking out of turn, so please excuse me, but that if we feel or you hear from other residents that this is possibly a larger problem or issue, I would recommend that maybe the board, along with Tom Ryder, the Board of Health Engineer, and the Conservation Commission go out together, possibly through the Alexander's property, to see what they're seeing. And because if they're dumping, that's illegal dumping, and that's under your purview. And if it is by chance in the wetlands, both departments should be involved.
Well, I'm on board with that. So, public notice is out there via this meeting. If anybody, else, any of your neighbors are seeing or, having any issues, please let us know.
Alan, sorry,
Yes.
there is a gentleman who has his hand up, Mr. Cormier. You're on.
Hi, I'm Kathleen and Mark's neighbor. I live at 16 Level Street. And I'm concerned about this whole thing to a large extent because of, I'm really worried that the drainage has been compromised, especially by the cutting of the culvert that leads from the pond that is on the Alexander's property to the swamp that's in the back. Right now, this year, the back of my property tends to be a little bit on it's never on the dry side, let's say, but this year it is extremely wet. We have an area where if I go in there, it basically is all mud, and it's basically impossible to mow or to take care of. So I'm really worried about that part. I feel that the cutting of the culvert is probably due to the cutting of that culvert to a large extent, and also to the pile that basically is changing the flow on all of our properties. So I was wondering if there's a way of getting all of this approved by an engineer, and if obviously there hasn't been any permit taken out, so if something like that could be done where all of this would be assessed by somebody qualified to make sure that the flow is not, the water flow is not compromised, and possibly creating a problem for the Alexander's wells. Obviously, my well is right at the front, right at Level Street, so it's probably not quite as critical, but I'm not sure of that at all. It's totally possible that all these wells are all tied together. So I would like for all of that to be tested, and also for the swamp to be tested to see what effect it has on that on the population of lizards and all those things that are in there.
Okay, sir, how long have you lived on Level Street?
I've lived on Level Street since 2007, I think.
Okay. I believe the Alexanders, is that the house that Fred Kelly originally built, Missy?
The house that I live in, 16 Level Street, is the house that was inhabited by Mr. Kelly. He built the house that the Alexanders live in, and it was sold to them because he separated the property into two.
All right, so I know which two houses we're talking about now. Thank you very much for clearing that up for me.
Okay.
I forgot about the Alexander's house. I forget that it got tucked in there in the middle, right in front of the pond. That's right. So the pond that was created is actually right in the center of their backyard.
Yep.
All right. So I know the two properties, and I know the areas that you're talking about that tend to get a little damp. We can ask our engineer that works for the Board of Health. We can't ask him tonight, unfortunately. He wasn't able to attend the meeting, but we can ask him for his suggestions. In the meantime, if you also haven't contacted the Conservation Board, I would, so that they know that you are also concerned about what's taking place there.
Yeah.
And we will make sure Missy has your contact information, and we will have a conversation with our town engineer representative about your concerns, and see what he says falls under our umbrella that we can do or can't do.
Okay.
As Missy said, there's no reason we can't do a joint commission visit to your properties with your permission. And of course, we'd probably like to have you there because you see firsthand what's going on. And we'll do what we can to answer your questions.
Yeah, my hours are flexible enough that if I'm given even a few hours of warning, I should be able to be here with Kathleen to basically guide you through what we're seeing and everything. The other part that's really kind of a little scary is that big pile, every time a rainstorm comes by, erodes in a different place and the stuff just runs down to the bottom, and it just seems to be creeping closer and closer to the property and changing the flow, the water flow pretty much every single time there's a rainstorm out there.
Missy, would something like that involve building by any chance? I mean, I know it's not a structure, but it's obviously a great change to a site.
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
because there's no structures or anything, maybe, I mean, if I'm thinking of other town departments, I'm thinking you might want to get the zoning involved. You might want to, conservation, definitely. I'm not sure about planning. But yeah, I mean, I would suggest that I can email Tom Ryder, ask him if he has any availability. If anyone who is on the call tonight wants to email me their contact information at boh@mendonma.gov. And then as soon as I hear from Tom Ryder that, yes, he has availability and what hours he can come out and take a peek, and then I can let the residents know when Tom, and then I can let the board know. So that way everyone will kind of be on the same page as far as doing any on-site work. And Tom Fickner also has his hand up for you, Alan.
Go get him, Tom.
Tom, you're on mute.
Oh, how's that now?
I can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Cormier and Mr. and Mrs. Alexander for being on the call. Much appreciated in your input. I did have, based on what you were talking about, Mrs. Alexander, just some follow-up questions, and maybe for you, Mr. Cormier, as well. First, I'll ask Mrs. Alexander, do you know who the specific conservation contact was that you had dealt with during the
Damon.
process?
Yes, it was Damon.
Damon Tenio? Okay.
Yes.
And kind of based on what was referenced in discussion about the hill and the buildup of the soil and what has been seen as far as the erosion and the changes, had conservation, Damon, seen any of the erosion aspects that you folks are mentioning tonight, out of curiosity?
I don't believe so, because my contact with him was in early August. I spoke with him August 12th. And then we had those big storms after that.
Okay, so the initial contact, that the erosion aspect hadn't really come into play per se until these more recent storms started to kind of hit and kind of really made some, what sounds like some significant changes to the
Yes.
structure.
And I do think that a different neighbor in the area may have complained, and the silt fence was installed. I don't know how that came about.
Okay, maybe possibly with that subsequent complaint coming through, maybe conservation had done some sort of follow-up with the owner about making the recommendation to install that. I'm kind of guessing, but it's something that may have taken place.
I think everything kind of came together when the animals were removed and the silt fence was installed.
I see.
Is
Okay.
my guess.
Yeah. Okay.
If you want to see example of the erosion that happened to the pile of dirt, we have pictures at different times that show erosion and what looks like dumping of barn
Waste.
waste.
Well, it's excellent. That goes to my next question in looking to confirm if there was actual visual evidence that you folks have that could be sent along to us. That would be wonderful to get that, to get those pictures. Is it all pictures? Is there any video with that out of curiosity, or?
All I've got is pictures unless somebody else took a video.
I have pictures, but I do not have pictures of the garbage bags that were buried. That was just an eyewitness.
Okay, understood. Well, it'd be very helpful to have the pictures that you have, Mr. Cormier, that are indicating the erosion, especially if it's at different stages. That would be very helpful. And as Alan mentioned, that would be definitely something that we want to be communicating with conservation on as well. Obviously, the situation has changed, sounds like dramatically from when it was initially looked at by conservation, and
Yes.
it probably warrants some follow-up, and maybe that's happening behind the scenes. Again, I don't want to speak for conservation, but
Sure.
yeah, but yeah, we do try to work closely, so we'll definitely be, if you're able to maybe email those pictures that you have to our Board of Health email,
Yes, I can get that.
email,
done.
that would be wonderful.
Yep.
Okay, great.
We'll try. I'll coordinate with Kathleen and make sure that we get all that stuff together so that it's easier to keep track of.
Okay, appreciate it. Also, too, with regard to the well concerns, I was curious, the types of wells that you folks have on your properties. Mrs. Alexander?
I believe we have an artesian well that overproduces.
Okay. Do you have, out of curiosity, do you know what the rough depth of the well might be?
I don't. I would have to look that up.
Okay. And same questions for you, Mr. Cormier, on your well?
I'm not sure. I've been lucky. I haven't had any problem with my wells. I haven't had any reason to really look at it. But
Yep.
I'll see if I can get the paperwork and find out exactly what it is and the depth as well.
Okay. Just curious, this could be some good pieces of information to have if we're trying to look to see what potential environmental changes might be taking place that could or could not possibly create a problem from a well perspective.
I was looking to update, to do some changes to the well. So I was going to call you guys anyway and get all the information from the original drilling of the well itself. So what I'll probably do is get the information from you and then send it back to you.
That sounds like Missy may have something at hand. Is that
So
correct?
Tom, yep. So Tom, for 14 Level Street, the total depth of the well is 305 feet. 16 Level Street, unfortunately, I don't have anything. Depending on when the house was built, it might have been done prior to the Mendon private well regulations being enacted in 1997, where it would have required a permit and all that types of paperwork. And quickly looking at the septic plan, it was approved in 1986. So that type of information is hit or miss.
Yeah, from what I know, the house was built just around 1986.
Okay.
I
And,
I can confirm that.
Okay. And out of curiosity, who is at 14 level? What family?
The Alexander family, and I believe that it was Darling that dug the well as part of the Kelly property, perhaps back in the 70s.
Okay. They got a pretty deep well. Okay.
From
great.
what I know,
Thank you, Missy.
from what I know, the well that supplies the Alexander's property was drilled, was the original well that was on the property, and
Yes.
the well that's on my property now is the well that was drilled when the Alexander's property was built.
Okay. All right,
Tom,
great. Yes, Missy.
according to the paperwork that I have, the well that we have on file was drilled in 1995.
For which property?
14 Level. I have no information on 16 Level Street.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we're slowly getting getting better at records, so we know that homes back years past don't necessarily provide us all the information.
Okay.
Okay. What else did I have? I think those are the only questions I just wanted to kind of circle back on. So thank you for that. I'll turn it back to you, Alan.
Missy, do we have anybody else on the call that's concerned about 106 Millville?
I'm not sure if they're concerned about 106 Millville, but we do have other people on the call. First, I would go to a gentleman. All I have is the name George.
George, would you like to comment on 106 Millville Road?
No comment.
Thank you.
The next one is GS.
GS, would you like to comment on 106 Millville Road? Well, I'll take that as no comment at this time.
The
I'm not
next
hearing
person.
anything.
The next person I have is a person by the name of Joanne.
Joanne, would you like to comment on 106 Millville Road?
No comment.
Thank you.
The next person I have is Mike Maroli.
Mike, any comments on 106 Millville Road? Well, I guess I'll take that as a no comment at this time also.
And there's one
Any-
other last person is Topher, Topher.
Any comments on 106 Mill? Thank you very much. Okay, the Alexander family and the Cormier family, I hope we were able to answer your questions as best we could at this time. We will touch base with the Conservation Commission, and I suggest where you still have concerns that you contact them also and let them know firsthand what your concerns are and that they still exist or they're getting worse. And we will talk with our town engineer representative and find out how we can look into this further and assist you with anything that comes under our umbrella.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll get more of the data to you guys as soon as we can.
Much
Thank you, much
appreciated, and we'll,
appreciated.
we will move on this, as fast as we can. Fortunately, the 3 Board of Health members probably all live within a couple miles of your residences. So we should be able to get over there once we get things set up and find out what direction we're supposed to head in. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
All right, Missy.
So the next thing I have is to discuss with you guys is a possible regional flu clinics or COVID booster clinics. So Erin from Uxbridge reached out to me and she's wants to know if Mendon would be interested in doing again our regional collaborative if they're booster shots for the COVID vaccine. She doesn't feel like it'd be that in depth as it was when the vaccines first came out, but I told her that I wouldn't see a problem why you guys wouldn't want to participate in if there's a booster shot for the COVID clinics, and be part of the collaborative that we were part of in the spring. So I just wanted to pass that on to you. The other thing was discussing a possibility of having our regional flu clinics. We have a flu clinic every year with the Salmon VNA. Again, the idea floated around was having a regional look at the flu shot clinics with Northbridge, Mendon, I believe it's Hopedale and Uxbridge. I'm getting a little bit of conflicting information. Anne wants to go ahead, Anne from the Salmon V&A wants to go ahead and start booking, just having our own up at Misco like we did last year. So I just wanted to pass these things by you guys and see what your feelings were on that.
Tom, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I'm all for the regional approach, so I'd be on board with collaboration on creating a booster clinic. It was very successful in what was done for the COVID clinic that took place in Uxbridge. So that same sense of collaboration I'd like to continue. I think it was very beneficial to the community at large. With regard to, what was the other piece of that, Missy?
It was a flu clinic.
Flu clinic, yeah. So that's interesting. I was kind of geared toward the same principle for the flu clinic, but so it sounds like maybe that is something that we're not going to be able to do, I guess, that we go along with our normal one. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't know. I think that Erin and Anne really need to talk to each other, because when I spoke to Erin about the COVID one, I briefly mentioned something about the flu clinic one, and she thought it was a great idea. So especially nowadays where everything's kind of virtual and everything, I don't know. I think we all need to be on board, meaning that Hopedale, Northbridge, Uxbridge, and Mendon have some kind of a communication, whether it's a meeting or whatnot, and say yay or nay to the regional approach, because the regional approach, the way it was described to me, was we would have a couple of flu clinics probably at Mikulski, but we would offer them for like 3 weeks in a row, a day and a night, maybe twice a week, which would give more opportunity for those who want to get the flu shot if they choose they want to come through the towns. Otherwise, talking with Anne, she got us into Color, which is the replacement of Prep Mod, and she wants to get going now. She wants me to request Misco, so I'd like to wrap around one more time with both of them, but I didn't know how you guys would feel.
Well, I'd like to pursue the regional approach on the flu clinic as well, if we can. But you're right. I mean, it's probably a case where if this hasn't been a smooth communication process, Anne's probably looking to lock in something sooner than later from a scheduling perspective, given that we're probably at the point where flu shots should actually be being given at this point, right? Or start to be given.
Yeah, I believe that it was, I believe they're recommending people get their flu shots earlier than later in waiting. So, I know the date that Anne was giving me was sometime around the first week of October, any Tuesday or Wednesday, but not the 6th of October. So I will have to put that request into the school also.
Okay. Here's a question I just thought of as we were talking about these two subjects. Had the topic come up at all with regard to the timing of an individual receiving a flu shot and a booster shot? Is there any conflict that is in regard to those at all?
As far as how many weeks in between getting a booster shot and the COVID shot?
Well,
the booster and the flu shot.
Yeah, is there any conflict in the timetable there?
There was, it was for at least when we were doing the Pfizer one with the 2-shot, they always asked if you had another vaccine at all in the last 14 days.
Okay.
So I don't know if that will continue for the booster shot.
Yeah, that could play into the scenario as well too. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, Well, that's what I have. Those are my views on the topics. Back to you, Alan.
Oh, thank you, Tom. I'm on board for the regional approach by all means. However, I do understand the importance of getting the flu shots out early. I know my wife was at her doctor's for a blood pressure check yesterday, and the flu shot was available, and she got it. So she got hers taken care of. So I know that the PCPs are out there doing the best they can as their people come in to get them their flu shots now. And I don't know how long it's going to be till the COVID booster is available. Everything that I've been seeing through my own personal patient gateway is that it really hasn't fully been approved yet. So they're still going through the paperwork to even get it, approved so that we can do the booster shot. So I don't know, that might be Ann's concern. I don't know if we could do the one at Clough and still participate in the regional. If we can go that route, I'd do both. I'd cover the bases on both sides. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you, Missy.
Okay, so what I can do is I can go ahead with Ann and go ahead and start planning for the one flu clinic. And then if something comes where we want to join into the joint venture, we'll jump on board. The other thing with the COVID booster shot, the state actually reached out to Uxbridge to find out if they were even willing to, when all this comes, if this, shakes out, that they are going to do the booster shots, if the regional collaborative was even willing to entertain opening it back up. So I think that's what she's doing as far as planning purposes for that. Alan?
Yes, I think the first round went very, very well. And I was very pleased to be able to volunteer and participate in it. And depending upon the timing, I personally would jump right in and participate again. It was the first time that I actually felt like I was making some progress with the whole COVID pandemic in general. And I know I'm just echoing everybody's sentiments that it was so nice and to see people coming through the door and how appreciative they were. And
Yeah, it was
nice.
I
could use some more of that good feeling.
Yep.
So I'll jump in on the regional approach anytime. And listen, by supporting our neighbors in the neighboring towns, we know that if we ever needed their support, they're going to be there for us. So it's the right thing to do. Back to you, Missy or Tom.
Alrighty, so the next thing that I have on your agenda is discuss routing slip or a checklist for permits. So I've been getting a couple of permits, including the application I got for 106 Millville for some residential kitchens and things like that. And I know what town council's opinion was when we had that other big meeting as far as holding permits or whatnot. So I talked to Tom Allen about it. I came up with, my idea is more of it's a checklist. So I've tried sending you guys a copy of it today. I don't know if you guys received it or if it got bounced back, but it's basically, if someone comes in to pull an application for a food permit or tobacco, hauler or installer, because those are the 4 big permits that you guys issue. As far as for a business, to give them a checklist that they have to go to the town clerk, the treasurer collector, the assessor, depending possibly fire department, planning, zoning, or building and zoning, just to make sure that everyone is on board, that there is a start of some kind of line of communications when a business comes in, what they can and what they can't do. I would hate to have us be permitting someone that is having a business that really doesn't comply with either the town's bylaws or building codes, fire codes. So I was just looking to get both you guys' input on what you would think on something like that.
All right, I'll go first. I'm all for a checklist. I know that there are some kinks in the routing slip. I haven't had a chance to review it. I've been on the road all day. However, based on that, I'm sure you covered all the bases as far as the departments that you just mentioned. Are they going to, they'll go to the fire department, let's say. Is there a spot on this so that someone can initial it and date it?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, you know, because this is going to be a process that's going to take them, it could take them a couple of visits
right.
to get this done.
Exactly. It would be on the applicant. The responsibility would be put on them, not on us. I talked to the town clerk. She liked the idea because that way people who are in need of business certificates will then make sure that they get them. I talked to the principal assessor. She liked the idea. I talked to the assistant treasurer collector. She liked the idea of it all, you know, being done ahead of time. When I had my discussions with Tom.
What?
Hello?
Yeah.
Someone with the last 4 digits, 4170. Can we help you?
I thought I had it on mute.
No, you're active.
I'm very. How do I mute it?
It would depend on the type of phone that you're on.
Okay, I'll just be very quiet.
Sorry.
Yeah, you should have a mute
I'm
button of some kind on your keypad that shows you digits. There should be a symbol, I think, for mute somewhere on there as well.
I see hide.
But if not, you can just whisper.
Oh, I see it. Thank you so much.
So, you know, so it would be put on the applicant, like I was speaking with Tom earlier about it, you know, what happens if someone comes in and they don't have all their signatures? I'm not going to take it. You got to go back and make sure you get all your signatures. That way, I believe it will start some communications between the departments as far as what's going on. And so I have not spoken, I haven't talked to the building inspector or the zoning enforcer. So I'm hoping to reach out to them. And I haven't talked to the fire department yet. So the other thing I was thinking is the select board, we can add them. I haven't had a chance to talk to Laura or Kim about it, but it's just an idea of trying to get things moving. I'm going to hand it over to Tom because I talked to him about it and I know he had some thoughts and ideas about it. Tom?
Well, first of all, I just got to give kudos to you, Missy. I think it's great you're kind of running with the ball. Yeah, unfortunately, the routing slip process that we've had internally just hasn't quite manifested the way that we probably would have liked from I'd say from an overall standpoint. What I thought was great about the checklist concept was it actually kind of forces the routing to take place by the fact that an applicant is looking to do something. And by creating the checklist, it's giving right up front an applicant the information for what's needed to be done in order to successfully do what they're looking to do. I know sometimes in this routing slip process that typically happens behind the scenes, you know, a resident may come in with an application for something and then not realizing or thinking that this is all they needed to do, come to realize in maybe the 11th hour that something else is needed by another group or department. This way, it puts all the information, all the needs right up front, for the applicant. So if it happens to be a food permit for an establishment from BOH, here's the checklist. Mr. and Mrs. Resident, these are the groups that you're going to want to just confer with and validate. And then I think that's going to be a great solution. And it sounds like so far all the departments that Missy's talked with would be on board with it. And of course, I think with this being what's basically going to be a good process for all the departments to work with. It's going to be key, of course, to have involvement with the select board and the town administrator as well. I can't see any reason why they wouldn't want to see something like this go through. I think overall it's just going to make things flow smoother. Back to you, Alan.
Yeah, no, I think where it's our process and we're not holding a permit up, we're just not going to issue a permit until the checklist is complete. So,
Correct.
there's no problem with legal. Before we were having that routing slip come around and we were finding a problem, and then another department wasn't being able to issue a permit to somebody or a license, and that's what was jamming things up. So I think, again, to echo Tom, great job, Missy, and this is our process. This is our thing. I think you've done a great job with it, and if there is someone who doesn't want to be part of the checklist, that's their choice. But so far, you've gotten good feedback, and who knows, we may find some of the other departments wanting to do the same thing. Thank you.
The one other thing too, when I was talking to Tom about it, the other thing I would also pass by is I would ask to have it go before town council, to make sure that the wording, the concept, that it's okay. She might come up with, you should have said this instead of saying that. Okay, we'll correct it to make sure everybody's, okay with it. But I just, I've been told the town of Grafton does this, and I was told that the town of Bellingham does this also. And Tom has his hand up again, Alan.
Go get him, Tom.
Well, Missy actually just addressed one of the points with regard to the legal. So of course, it is something we still want to get verification from our council on, just to make sure that what we're doing is deemed to be an acceptable practice. We're not trying to hinder a resident or overburden a resident. We're just simply trying to really make the processes work smoother. And it just really hasn't happened from the behind the scenes routing slip process that's currently in place. The other thing I want to mention, Alan, is this would not just be a Board of Health item. It's being spearheaded by Missy, so I give her credit for leading the charge, but this would be something that we would look to see that all departments will adopt as a standard. So it wouldn't just be Board of Health, it would be all departments. So if somebody went to the assessor's office for something, the same thing, they'd be presented with a checklist that would reference going to the various departments to make sure things are, are as they should be, and there's no issues that need to be addressed by another department. So it would be a universal checklist. Back to you, Alan.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for clearing that up. I figured after we showed them how well it worked, other departments would just adopt it, but you've already got that covered. Thank you.
Alrighty, so for the next thing I have is discuss health agent / food inspector. I just want to let you guys know that Danielle, who has been our backup for Lenny while Lenny is out, has applied for the 8-town regional inspector for the Blackstone Valley, which Mendon is a part of. We interviewed her today. We agreed to offer the job to her. My understanding is she's accepted or is going to accept. So Danielle will go from being our backup food inspector, housing inspector, health agent, however you want to classify it, to being now part of that regional program. We are also going to start advertising again in that regional grant program for a second full-time inspector to see what we can get. That seems to be the biggest consensus of the 8 towns is they need help with inspections, whether it is septic, restaurant, housing, pools, tanning salons, things of that nature. So I just wanted to give you an update on that. Did you guys have any questions?
I'm good.
Tom does.
How unusual.
It'd be unusual if you didn't.
It's a 24/7 availability, is that correct?
I'm sure if something came up, yes. I mean, that is something actually that we're gonna start discussing, and I know you're laughing, but as to find out how much, full-time position over in Northbridge, who is the one that is, she will actually become a Northbridge employee. Full-time for them is 35 hours. So 35 hours divided by 8 towns. Of course, some towns might not need her as much as the bigger towns. I would say like Mendon and Upton are kind of in the middle, where you have a Hopedale or a Millville might not need someone for as many hours, where Northbridge and Uxbridge would. Hopefully we'll get that second person though.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a far cry. I say that with tongue in cheek. I'm sure it's going to be a far cry better than what we have now, as far as, availability of personnel for the topics to cover. So I think it's great. Good news. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so the only other 2 things I have on the agenda for you guys tonight is to continue the process of reviewing and updating your private well regulations. Again, Tom couldn't be here tonight, but he did tell me he had not made any more updates or changes to what he had done the last time. So if you guys, I know Andy's not here, and, I know you guys want to have a full board for that discussion. And then we haven't really touched much on this, but possibly creating dumpster regulations. I haven't gotten anything on that. So, I don't know. I think you guys want to take care of the well part first and then start on the dumpsters. I don't know. But those are the last 2 things I have on the agenda for you guys. Alan?
Well, like you said, we really need to have a full board, and for the well, we need Tom Ryder. So I guess we'll table those 2 issues. Before we close out, I do want to reach out and see if anybody else on the call, anybody that's listening in, has any comments or any concerns that we can address. Is that appropriate, Missy?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime anybody has a comment or a question, we definitely would welcome anybody.
So if there's anybody in the audience that we can assist in any way or wants to make a comment, please do.
Alan, a gentleman by the name of George has his hand up.
George, please address the board.
Talk about the dumpster. Yeah, I'm on board tonight to hear about the dumpster on Inman Hill Road, and it appears
Okay,
that
George.
you're going to pass it by or what?
George, actually, we're in the process. Your neighbor came to a meeting and discussed her concerns, and we're in the process. We have no actual dumpster regulations. So we, in the past, we had a gentleman who is an expert in the field who works for Harvey Industries, E.L. Harvey. And he came to our meeting and kind of let us in on what other towns are doing that they do business in, what the regulations are, what the idea is that they're working on. So we're in the process of writing the regulations, and it was definitely spurred from your situation up on Inman Hill Road.
Okay, so we'll have to wait for the future till you have the full board, or?
It's a process. Missy has given us copies of some surrounding towns and what that have regulations and what their regulations are. So we've been reviewing those to see what we can use and what we can't use. So it's a process. It's not something that's gonna happen overnight. It could take us. I'm trying to think, Missy, did we set a date? I know we set an approximate date for the well regulations. Did we set a date to try to have the dumpster regulations ready by?
You have not set a date, but I mean, I
Okay,
would
so-
push for probably the same time. You have a
Okay.
January 1st.
Okay, so it's in process, George. You know, any comments or suggestions you'd like to make that might, we might want to put in a regulation, please feel free to, to speak.
Well, my only comment is that you and I have gone through this before. Now it smells.
We have.
Now it smells when it rains and they drop one and pick up the other. The water runs out, it smells. It creates flies, and the big equipment is digging the top of the hill up quite badly. Other than that,
Yes,
guess
I understand. I understand from your neighbor that they're actually changing them out up on top of the hill on town property.
Yeah, well, they're not doing that anymore. He's doing it in his own yard, which still you got to pick up one which is full of water and move it, and then put the other one in and pick the other one back up again. But that process is now digging up the top of the hill. So
Okay.
and the flies.
All right. I will. I will take a ride up there tomorrow. I haven't been up there in a couple of weeks. I'll take a ride up there tomorrow. And I was, I was saddened to hear that the situation hadn't gotten any better up on the hill.
Well, it's unfortunate.
When your neighbor came to the board, I was really hoping, based on our last conversation, that the situation had been made livable. But we are in the process of writing actual regulations that will dictate when these dumpsters can be emptied, how long these dumpsters can be on a property. We're looking at whether or not we want to require to have the dumpster covered so that the elements stay out of the dumpster. Right now, we were advised that no hauling company has a regulation or a statement that we are aware of that they can't mix household trash in with construction debris. So we're looking into that as to, what we as a Board of Health in a town can dictate as far as what can go in a dumpster, what can't go in a dumpster. So we're looking at, a lot of different suggestions and things that we're gathering from other towns. The town of Upton did this a number of years ago, and they were very concerned. I remember reading about it. They were very concerned about what they called dumps the juice. So we're in the process, but it's going to take multiple meetings to get these regulations written, unfortunately.
Okay, I appreciate your help in the past, but when you come up and take a look, enjoy the beauty up here that the dumpster really takes away from. Thank you.
No, I'm very aware, and like I said, I was saddened to hear that the situation hadn't gotten any better, even though we moved it to the back side of his property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, George. Anybody else?
Yes, I would like to, this is Tisha Lowe from Inman Hill Road, and I would
Ah,
politely
yes, ma'am.
ask and urge you to set a deadline for this issue. The last dumpster, you'll come up here, and it was finally emptied after 2 days shy of 2 months of it being full. It does smell. I have a 27-minute long video of the noisy, obtrusive, smelly swap out that took place, and also a picture of the 30-foot dumpster full to the brim, over the brim. And
All
that's
right,
all I'd like to say about it. I do urge you to set a deadline for this.
No, and
It's been
I
going on for
appreciate
many, many
you.
years.
I appreciate the fact that you're on the call. I wasn't aware that you were on the call with George. The last time that you attended a meeting, you spoke on his behalf, which, we heard you loud and clear. And as you heard the chairman state at that meeting, he would get this done ASAP. I believe I'm quoting him. He's not on the meeting tonight. We normally meet every 2 weeks, so we will inform him of your urgency.
We appreciate it very much.
No, thank you very much, and I'm sorry you're having to experience this.
Alan,
Yes, Missy.
I would just add that you guys are, because we have no dumpster regulations currently, you're creating them from scratch. So you also want to make sure that the dumpster regulations that you do create fit Mendon. I know I gave you a bunch of towns, but what might be good for the town of Milford won't be good for the town of Mendon. So it is going to take you a little bit of time to try to create these. And then we'll also have some bumpy time when you actually enact these regulations, and you might be tweaking them as time goes on. And Tom has his hand up.
Tom?
Oh, thanks, Alan. George, Tish, thank you for being on the call. We are looking to move as quickly as possible with regard to dumpster regulations. It's just that, and this has been highlighted by Missy and Alan, there is you do not want to create a regulation arbitrarily or haphazardly. It needs to be done with thought. It's unfortunate that I think the majority of the dumpster usage that goes on in the community is done well and with respect. Unfortunately, in this particular case, like what happens with regard to needing regulations for anything, it's usually somebody decides to take advantage of a situation or abuse it, and then you end up having to create a regulation around it so that there is some sort of an enforcement action that can then correct the situation. I believe too, just the one note about regulations, and Missy, correct me if I'm wrong, once these are drafted and confirmed, this would automatically trigger a public hearing. Is that right, Missy?
No.
This would not.
The only thing that actually requires a true public hearing is if you are doing anything with Title V. That said, that doesn't mean you don't have to. It's saying you don't have to do it. Doesn't mean you can go ahead and do something like that, where you could hold a public hearing, but it's not required for something like this.
Okay. Well, that's good to know that it's not mandated, although it's probably could be a nice thing to potentially consider doing for a subject like this.
Yes.
So it is opened up. I bet, of course, that'll be something the board will have to determine if that's the way they want to go. But I could see that actually being of benefit.
Yeah, we had a public hearing where we put it in the newspaper and everything when we were changing the smoking age from to purchase cigarettes or tobacco from 18 to 21, and
Right.
when we did the no smoking back in, I think it was 2003 3 with the restaurants and stuff. We didn't have to have a public hearing, but we did the public hearing process.
I see. Okay, so that was of our own accord. It wasn't that it had to happen by mandate. We chose to go that direction for that. Okay. I would probably look to do the same thing for
I
this
would
topic.
recommend that. Yeah, I would recommend that to you guys too, especially where you're creating them where you didn't have anything before. And plus it gives the public, it gives the residents the opportunity. You want to see a copy of what's proposed, we'll put it on the website. You can have paper copy here, town clerk's office, whatever. But it also gives the more information to the residents so they know what's going on.
Great. Okay, thank you. So we're working as quickly as we can to get them drafted and get something in place so that there is an enforcement element that goes around with the usage for this. Again, not to be heavy-handed. I think you'll find that our board tries not to be quote unquote heavy-handed with regulatory action, but we do know that when abuses take place, sometimes you have no choice but to craft a regulation so that the word is out. Hey, this is how you have to use this particular item, and it helps with folks that maybe don't necessarily have a mutual respect, let's say, for the neighbors and community to kind of get them in compliance. So we're working diligently. Thank you very much for being on.
Alan, there's just one more thing I would want to add to that for anybody that does see our agendas, that the well and dumpster issues will be a standing order, so to speak, until you guys have completed and have gotten a draft of those 2 items. So people will see repetitively those 2 items on our agenda. It's just so that if something comes up that kind of takes the board away from that, pandemic, whatever, it keeps it in all of our minds to remember to keep that going. So I just want to throw that out there too.
Oh, very good. What was the approximate deadline that we set for the well regulations? Was it early October?
I wanted them done by January 1st because it was a new year. That doesn't mean that you can't do for the well regs. That doesn't mean you can't redo bits and pieces. But if you're going to do the public hearing portion of it, you really should have it all completed and not piecemeal it.
Okay. I realize both these issues are urgent. So we're just going to have to find a way to get it done and get it done correctly.
So that's all I have for you guys on the agenda tonight. Unless you guys have something for me, I would go ahead and schedule your next meeting.
Please do.
I'm looking at the calendar and I'm thinking September 29th.
Sounds good.
Tom?
Next.
Yep, that'll work for me. Thank you.
And then probably in October, I'll probably talk to you guys and see if you guys want to go back to meeting at 6 instead of 7. As fall comes into play and it gets darker earlier. So, but right now, September 29th at 7 o'clock.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Motion?
Well, I just would throw it out one more time. Are all others on the call? No other questions for any of the topics or anything in general? Is everyone out there?
I have 2 people that have not spoken, and that is someone named Joanne and Mike Maroli.
Okay, great. Well, in that case, sounds like we've addressed questions and concerns for the evening. So with that, I'll motion to adjourn the meeting for tonight.
and I will second it and say thank you to everyone for their participation.
Alrighty, good night, guys. I will see you September 29th.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank
Good night.
you. Bye-bye.